What if the map of Eastern Europe after World War I had taken a radically different shape? One where Poland emerged not as a fragile young republic, but as a sprawling federal empire stretching from the Baltic to the Black Sea. What if the decisions made in smoky conference rooms in Paris or on the battlefields outside Warsaw had swerved just a few degrees? In the chaos of collapsing empires, civil wars, and diplomatic gambles, Poland stood at a crossroads where a dozen futures were possible. This is the story of the Poland that almost existed, the Poland that might have reshaped the entire 20th century. During the First World War, Poles found themselves scattered across enemy uniforms, some fighting for the Germans, others under Austrian banners, and many conscripted by the Russians. Each empire courted the Poles for its own ends. Austria toyed with the idea of resurrecting a Polish kingdom under Habsburg influence. Russia imagined a greatly expanded Congress Poland stretching deep into Prussia and Galicia. Germany acted first, creating a small puppet kingdom of Poland in 1917, then securing its legitimacy in the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk in early 1918. But the moment Germany signed the November Armistice, the facade collapsed. The Poles, seeing the Central Powers crumble, swiftly transformed that puppet kingdom into the reborn Second Polish Republic. Then uprisings erupted against the Germans, liberating vast parts of Poland and Silesia until the Allies abruptly ordered Warsaw to halt, fearing a total German collapse. When the Polish delegation finally reached the Versailles negotiations, they split into two opposing visions for the new state. Roman Dmowski's dream of a tightly unified, ethnically Polish nation, and Józef Piłsudski's federal vision, a multi-ethnic alliance stretching across the east. Piłsudski himself was away fighting for Polish borders, leaving his faction to argue for an Intermarium, a great federation between the Baltic and Black Seas. France supported the idea. Britain and the US did not, suspicious of Piłsudski's refusal to support anti-Bolshevik White Russians. Meanwhile, Lithuania and Ukraine wanted nothing to do with Polish plans. Caught between these factions was Ignacy Paderewski, the famous pianist turned diplomat, who attempted to bridge the divide. He proposed something almost forgotten today, a United States of Poland, a federal republic inspired by American structures. Wilson seemed receptive at first, but the idea lost momentum. Paderewski shifted focus towards securing Poznan, Upper Silesia, and the crucial corridor to the Baltic. Britain blocked Poland's claim to Gdansk, setting up future tensions. Yet while diplomats argued in Paris, Poland was still fighting for its life. Wars erupted with Ukraine, Czechoslovakia, Lithuania, and, most dangerously, with Soviet Russia. At first, the Polish offensive succeeded, but by summer 1920, the Red Army was marching on Warsaw. The world expected a Soviet victory that would carry communism straight into Germany. Instead came the miracle on the Vistula, where the Poles repelled the Bolsheviks and pushed them east. Still, that scare influenced local plebiscites in Silesia and Masuria. Both German and Polish officials admitted that fear of a Soviet triumph pushed many voters toward Germany, costing Poland valuable industry and manpower. When the Soviets finally sought peace, France pressured Poland to keep fighting to save the last remaining White Russian forces in Crimea. Polish generals sensed opportunity. They believed they could liberate all of Belarus or Ukraine if they pushed on. Desperate to redirect troops toward internal rebellions, Moscow offered Poland nearly all of modern Belarus, including Minsk, and a defensive frontier along the Dnieper. The deal even hinted that Poland could seize Lithuania uncontested. But the National Democrats, Dmowski's camp, dominated the delegation. Accepting this enormous eastern border would have strengthened Piłsudski's federal model and doomed their dream of an ethnically Polish state. So they rejected the offer, shocking both the Soviets and their own military, and instead accepted far less land. On March 18, 1921, the Treaty of Riga fixed Poland's borders, creating a state with large minorities and borders almost impossible to defend. During the interwar years, instability plagued the new republic. In 1926, Marshal Piłsudski staged a coup, claiming neutrality but imprisoning much of the National Democratic opposition. The Great Depression devastated Poland. Foreign capital evaporated, magnifying the rift between rural and industrial regions. Only in the late 1930s did the economy revive thanks to Eugeniusz Kwiatkowski's ambitious four-year plan, which developed the central industrial region and elevated Gdynia into a modern port. But by 1939, history had other plans, and the familiar tragedy returned. Yet imagine another path. In early 1919, with heavy French backing, Polish forces surged through Silesia and Greater Poland, winning nearly all contested territories before the Allies even imposed ceasefires. In Paris, Paderewski aggressively pushed his United States of Poland concept. He had first outlined it to Wilson in 1917, but now he championed it with far greater conviction. In his design, Poland would be a federation, a republic of autonomous kingdoms supported by a Sejm, a Senate, and an elected king-president. The Commonwealth's legacy as a medieval republic defending freedom against German and Russian oppression was glorified, downplaying monarchs and emphasizing shared liberty. Poland, he argued, had always been multi-ethnic and religiously tolerant, home to Poles, Lithuanians, Ruthenians, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Germans, Estonians, Latvians, Slovaks, Livonians, and Cossacks, along with Catholics, Orthodox, Jews, and Protestants. In Europe, Paderewski claimed more than 50 million people either spoke or understood Polish. A reunited republic could reach 54 million citizens, as homogeneous as France, he boldly asserted, though he admitted its diversity. What convinced Wilson most was Poland's contribution to American independence through figures like Pulaski and Kosciuszko and through financiers like Haym Salomon. Poles, Paderewski argued, had fought for America's freedom. Now, America should support Polish freedom. Meanwhile, Colonel Tadeusz Rozwadowski, hero of Galicia, used his connections within the Inter-Allied Commissions to push the plan further. With France's interest in weakening Germany, plebiscites that might harm Poland were quietly sidelined. France needed a strong Eastern partner, and Poland fit perfectly. To reinforce this new alignment, American officers worked with Poland to form the Polish-American Legion, supplying tanks, aircraft, engineers, and medical corps. France approved, Britain reluctantly followed once it became clear the US was backing the Polish cause. London shifted its concerns toward France's control of the Rhineland and supported Polish expansion eastward and northward instead. Under the United States of Poland blueprint, the future king-president of the Federation would rule over Poland, Lithuania, Belarus, and Galicia. The plan included most former Commonwealth territories, plus Silesia, Pomerania, and all of East Prussia, actions justified as preventing German revanchism and restoring lands once tied to Poland. Germans in these regions would receive autonomous status within a state named Königsberg. But Lithuania refused. Wilson, committed to self-determination, sided with them, so Lithuania stayed independent. Still, Poland gained the rest, including East Prussia, a symbolic humiliation for Germany. With the USP recognized, Paderewski returned home and became the new head of state.
Rozwadowski traveled across Europe forging alliances, visiting Romania, then meeting Pope Benedict XV to secure moral support. At Spa in July, he negotiated for Germany's armaments and fought Czechoslovak's claims in the Teschen region. Although the Czechs retained most of the territory, Poland gained valuable military supplies. Back home, Piłsudski continued fighting for Poland's borders. Once the Polish-American Legion arrived, Rozwadowski overshadowed him in the eyes of Western allies, though both leaders pressed forward. Poland defeated the West Ukraińską Republikę, secured Lviv, and signed a pact with the Ukrainian People's Republic against the Soviets. Piłsudski then issued his proclamation to the peoples of the former Grand Duchy of Lithuania, promoting autonomy and religious freedom, an attempt to show that Poland sought partnership, not conquest. Many locals, recalling harsh Russian rule, were open to Polish union, but Lithuania remained skeptical, especially over Vilnius, its historic capital, now majority Polish. And so, even in this alternate future, friction lingered, yet Poland stood far stronger, far larger, and far more influential than in our timeline. By spring of 1919, Poland had already wrested Vilnius from the Soviets, but Lithuania still insisted the city was theirs. In early August, Polish headquarters received rumors of an uprising brewing w Suwałki, ethnic Poles preparing to revolt and return to Poland. Yet Piłsudski unexpectedly ordered them to stand down.
He sensed something larger unfolding. Behind the scenes, the Polish military organization had been working with Lithuanian factions who wanted to overthrow their supposedly pro-German government and replace it with one friendly to Warsaw. On the night of August 28th, pro-Polish rebels stormed Kaunas, Lithuania's de facto capital, invited Polish troops in for protection, and declared the old Lithuanian cabinet illegitimate. In its place, they installed a new pro-Polish administration headed militarily by General Silvestris Żukauskas, a respected officer within the Lithuanian armed forces. With the army behind him, the previous government fled to Germany. France even refused to host them, inadvertently confirming Polish allegations that Lithuania's leadership had been tied to Berlin. Negotiations opened almost immediately. Żukauskas was offered a place for Lithuania inside the new Polish Federation as a fully autonomous kingdom. A plebiscite was arranged between Lithuania and Königsberg over control of Lithuania Minor. Though the vote was to be rigged in Lithuania's favor, the result delivered Memel, the prized port and symbolic heart of Lithuania Minor, to Lithuania, making Kaunas and Memel easier for Warsaw to influence despite the region's heavy Polish majority. The Curonian Strip and portions of Lithuania Minor followed suit and joined Lithuania, with even more territory promised once the Soviets were beaten. Lithuanian troops soon joined Polish forces in November, directing their combined strength eastward. With Lithuania secured, attention swung back to Russia. The war split into two theaters, Belarus and Ukraine. The northern campaign, led by Rozwadowski, saw stunning success. Polish units aided Latvia in its own struggle, laying foundations for a future alliance. Belarusian leaders were divided between independence and union with Poland. The pro-Polish camp prevailed as the harsh realities of Bolshevik rule set in. Belarusian Prime Minister Anton Lukiewicz struck a deal with Paderewski. Belarus, called Biała in the new federation, would enter Poland as an autonomous kingdom with its government intact and its cultural rights protected. News of the agreement shifted public opinion, and many Belarusian partisans rallied to the Polish side. While the north thrived, Piłsudski's southern advance sputtered. Ukrainians held a stronger national identity, mistrusted Warsaw, and bitterly remembered Poland's takeover of the West Ukrainian People's Republic. Poland pushed aggressively, capturing Kyiv in 1920, but momentum quickly evaporated. Meanwhile, in Belarus, the Poles seized Smolensk and Białorussia as Latvian forces drove the Soviets back toward the Velikaya River. But Ukrainian resistance stiffened. The front collapsed, forcing Polish advances elsewhere to slow for fear of encirclement. Any hope of marching on Moscow vanished, and with extra British support, General Wrangel managed to keep the southern anti-Bolshevik front alive far longer than expected. Some whispered that Poland had stalled deliberately. Piłsudski would not live to see how far the northern front had truly advanced. By 1921, the Soviets had regrouped and recaptured Kyiv, breaking through parts of the Polish line. Paderewski forced Piłsudski to resign, using him as a scapegoat for the setback. Rozwadowski was elevated to supreme commander. After brutal fighting around Lutsk, Poland finally halted the Soviet drive. The army counterattacked, retook Zhytomyr and Vinnytsia, and besieged Kyiv. Yet the civilian government, dominated by Dmowski's National Democrats, insisted on negotiations. In their minds, Wrangel was doomed, European patience was exhausted, and Poland risked overextension. The final settlement reflected this cautious mindset. Chelm, with its strong Polish presence, returned to Poland. But Kyiv was abandoned. The border retreated to the Teterew River. The southern frontier followed the southern Bug, leaving Vinnytsia in Polish hands. Ukraine's fears came true. Poland recognized the Ukrainian Soviet Republic and quietly agreed to phase out the Ukrainian name in their own lands, replacing it with the older term Ruthenian, making future unity far less likely. Latvia retained its frontier at the Velikaya, easily defended and militarily sensible. France grumbled at Poland's restraint, but by the time the treaty was ratified, Wrangel was collapsing, and Paris understood Warsaw's reasoning. Some Polish officers lamented the missed opportunity to crush Bolshevism altogether, yet most accepted that the new borders were defensible and that Poland had emerged as the dominant power in Eastern Europe. Now came the monumental task of rebuilding. With victory secured, Paderewski, supported across factions like a Polish George Washington, reluctantly remained as king-president, forming the Pluralist Party of Poland. His role was to hold the extremes in check and shepherd the newborn federation. The first challenge was organizing the kingdoms within the United States of Poland. To distinguish the central government from the Polish kingdom inside it, the latter informally became known as Wielkopolska, Greater Poland. Wrocław was centered in Kraków, not Warsaw, because minority groups preferred to keep federal politics and Polish politics somewhat separated. Lithuania's borders expanded far beyond what Versailles once granted, fulfilling promises made during secret wartime negotiations. But Königsberg balked at joining Lithuania. The German majority preferred a smaller, homogeneous state rather than swallowing large Polish territories. Belarus, though critical to defeating the Soviets, was kept from growing too powerful. A buffer kingdom, Polesia, was carved between Poland and Belarus, limiting Belarusian expansion while still granting Minsk a vast territory, far more than the Soviets ever offered. Southern Ukrainian lands formed the Kingdom of Galicia around Tarnopol, nearly 80% Polish in the city, but mixed in the countryside. With borders settled, attention turned to a national symbol, the federal flag. Many Poles wanted the classic red and white banner, but the Sejm fiercely debated alternatives. Some demanded the old Commonwealth standard. Others favored the flags of the Great Uprisings of 1830 or 1863. Pan-Slavic colors were rejected outright, too close to Russian sentiment. Finally, a compromise emerged, a flag inspired by the American model. 6 stripes for 6 kingdoms, with the white eagle in the canton as a unifying emblem. Each kingdom retained its own flag, flown proudly alongside the federal banner. Cultural rights were guaranteed everywhere, though Policia and Galicia posed challenges. The Policians spoke a West Belarusian dialect, which the government deliberately Lithuanianized, reshaping it into something distinct from Belarusian. Cyrillic was abolished in official documents. In the East, Belarusian officials imposed similar policies on Russian minorities, with enthusiastic federal support. In Galicia, the term Ukrainian was replaced by Ruthenian, mirroring Soviet policies to prevent a unified Ukrainian identity from emerging under any banner. Both Warsaw and Moscow wanted to ensure that no future Ukrainian national movement could threaten their fragile borders. Paderewski governed as a pragmatic centrist with mild socialist leanings. He built schools, revived old Commonwealth traditions for unity, and emphasized democracy as a core Polish value, much like in the United States. His inclusive policies reduced ethnic tensions, and celebrations of the Second Commonwealth reminded all groups of their historic role in Poland's greatness. After fleeing their civil war, many white Russian émigrés settled in Poland, deepening anti-communist sentiment. The Communist Party of Poland, wary of being seen as Moscow's puppets, adopted a nationalist line and drifted toward Menshevik-style socialism rather than Bolshevism. The Federation granted strong powers to individual kingdoms, especially over infrastructure and economics. The military, however, remained federalized, essential in a land surrounded by potential enemies. Society militarized quickly. French doctrine shaped Polish training and equipment, while Poland's closest allies remained Latvia, Romania, and Hungary. Hungary and Poland quietly worked to undermine Czechoslovakia, hoping to reunite the old alliances of the past. Though Polonization was illegal, it persisted informally in regions with large Polish populations. Woodrow Wilson was adored across the Federation. Statues of him filled parks, the grandest residing in Warsaw. His death in 1924 was marked with a national day of mourning, February 3rd, forever known as Wilson's Day. American investment flooded in afterward, transforming Warsaw into a modern cosmopolitan capital. A massive neo-Gothic parliament building rose along the Vistula. Railways, factories, and highways reshaped the Western kingdoms, though attempts to close the gap between wealthy Western Poland and poorer Eastern kingdoms faltered. In 1928, after 2 terms, Paderewski retired to resume his global musical career. General Rozwadowski, hero of the North, defender of the Republic, and loyal champion of the PPP, became the next king-president. At first, Poland flourished. Then came October 24, 1929. The U.S. stock market collapsed, and because Poland's economy was tied so tightly to America, it plunged headlong into disaster. Currency devalued, factories shuttered, and political extremists rose from every direction. The union Paderewski built trembled, and for the first time, the very survival of the United States of Poland seemed uncertain.